Good morning, good morning. It is Monday the 7th of October 2024 and you are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. Hello to Billy and to Time Traveller and Pete's Music and Sarah and Jupp and Sonic Shadow and Johan and Simon Smith and Shropshire Chris and Jan Wallace and Ivan Ambrose. Hello you all. If you'd like to join them and me in the chat, you can simply just subscribe to the channel. Just that's all you need to do. Hit the subscribe button, wait 30 seconds. And you will be ready to go. As I said, I'm Graham Hughes. Today we're going to be talking about Labour's shitty start to government. Oh my God. Like, seriously, what? Who is advising Labour? We have gone on this channel about how bad Labour comms are in the run-up to them actually taking power. And they, in many ways, they were lucky that the Tories were just so absolutely appalling at absolutely everything, so dysfunctional, so weak, so inept, so out of their depth, so uncaring and unsympathetic to the people whose lives they left in their wake, whose shattered lives they left in their wake. But Labour, they had quite a good plan for the election, all things being considered, and I know they're crap at social media, and generally speaking, they're crap at comms, but at least there was this one thing, right? The election. They were quite good at that. So that sort of gave me a little bit of hope that once they actually became the government, they'll be all right at it. They'll know what they were doing. They wouldn't look dysfunctional from the get-go, and yet, here we are, with Labour looking dysfunctional from the get-go. The three big charges against Labour now are, number one, the winter fuel allowance payment, which has been just absolute red meat for the Daily Mail reading pensioners, because the people who read the Daily Mail are pensioners, generally speaking. Hashtag not all Daily Mail readers, but it's pretty much all Daily Mail readers are pensioners. So, great. Well done. You've pissed off all the people who weren't going to vote for you anyway. But, however, they do have a lot of power over, the not just what the tabloids print, because the tabloids print what these people want them to print, but also we've got local elections coming up next year. That in May next year, there's going to be local elections. Labour are going to, if they don't change course immediately, they're going to take a hammering. The second thing is this quite daft saga about the free gifts. MPs get free gifts. It's completely within the rules. I don't really have so much of a problem with it if Keir Starmer goes to the match. And I'm sick of seeing pictures of Prince William at the match going, oh, he's just sitting with the fans. No, he's not. He's sitting in a box. You can see a window behind him. He's sitting in a... All right, mate, whatever. But having said that, yeah, there is something to be said when a politician gets to go to a gig and then they don't bring in legislation to stop Ticketmaster charging £300 for tickets to go and see a band that are past their sell-by date, past their sell-by date in 1997. Allegedly. So I can see why there's an issue there. But, the way that Labour has dealt with it has been... tell me in the chat if you think I'm talking out my arse here, but it's been bloody awful. First of all, sort of, making excuses, and then paying back a bit of it, but not others. And then we've had a story today, and it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's about Angela Rayner, and she bought her then boyfriend a suit. That's fine, isn't it? With her own money, not with taxpayers' money, not with the money that she was given from Google or Elon Musk or, I don't know, Vladimir Putin. No, her own money, right? She bought a suit for a boy. And apparently this is a bad thing because it was an expensive suit. And you're just like, that's right, yeah, working class people can't have nice things ever, even if they start doing well for themselves. They can't spend money on stuff like that. That's just for the rich, isn't it? Isn't it? It's just a daft story. But the way that this has all been handled by Labour has been absolutely appalling. And yeah, look, no rules have been broken, but if it means that much to you, we'll change the law and we'll say that MPs can't take any gifts at all. There you go. And then the Tory MPs will shut up. I can tell you that now, because they'll be like, oh shit, we get half our stuff for little freebies. One of the reasons why losing the whip is quite devastating for MPs is that they lose all their perks. And these things are the perks of the job. I'm here to, I'm not going to argue with you if you are going to tell me that they shouldn't take anything at all, any gifts at all. Fine. Yeah, that's great. But the system as it stands is, if you're in opposition, you've got to declare everything. If you are leading the country, if you are the Prime Minister, you don't have to declare shit. And that would include the £6.2 million worth of gifts that were given to Boris Johnson while he was Prime Minister. That doesn't need to be declared. So instead of highlighting the hypocrisy of all this, instead of calling the Tories bluff and saying, right, that's it then, no more free gifts for anyone, or you go to jail, or something like that, Labour just wibbled and wobbled all over the shop because their comms is shit. And I don't know who's advising Keir Starmer at the moment, but I think they need someone better in the job. Talking about getting someone better in the job, Sue Gray has resigned after less than 100 days of this Labour government. Again, it looks weak. It looks like something Trump would do, of having this revolving door of staff, because he didn't really know what he was doing. Labour should know what they're doing. I think they do know what they're doing to a certain extent, but oh my God, the optics on this look bloody awful. It looks like Labour's been infighting, arguing amongst themselves. It looks shit. It looks weak. It looks pathetic. And she hasn't, she's still working for the government. She's now head of the regions and the countries of the UK. Right, okay, part of that liaison committee. Okay, cool. So it's a demotion that she's been given, but it does look like she jumped before she was pushed. They must have had a meeting on Friday where they sort of came to an arrangement and said, well, I don't want to sack you because that'll look bad. I don't want you to, and we still want you to be involved in government in some way, but you can't stay here as chief advisor. Some of the stuff that has been out in the papers about Sue Gray, because they have it in for her because she's the one who wrote the Partygate report, which put a lot of chums, old school chums of the press, of our shit media in this country, into hot water. So they've hated her from the start. They've had the knives out for her. I don't think it's helped that Simon Case has stayed on as a chief civil servant when he was implicated in the reports that Sue Gray made. So do you think there might be some bad blood there? Do you think there might be a bit of tension in the room? Oh, come in, Sue. Come and chat with the guy who you wrote a report about, who had parties during and was involved in parties during lockdown when you couldn't visit your dying nan. But, they were pissing wine up the walls and having sex in cupboards and doing shitloads of cocaine and having a really good time when you couldn't attend your friend's funeral. Yeah, they were living it up. Yeah, that involved Simon Case. He was there. He went to the tribunal where they're trying to get to the bottom of what happened during COVID, the government's response to it, which was bloody awful and resulted in the deaths of at least 100,000 people who didn't need to die. Oh, but Graham, they said, we're not like New Zealand where they only had like 43 deaths. I mean, we're not an island. Yes, we are. Oh yeah, but New Zealand's only got a population of 4.7 million. We have a population of nearly 70 million now. I mean, come on, Graham, be reasonable. Okay, well, let's look at Japan. It's got a population of 130 million. A much higher population density, and it's an island. And they had less than half of the deaths that we had from COVID. Because they're locked down, and then when the vaccine was available, they gave everyone the vaccine. They didn't piss around, upsetting everyone, telling people that we were first because we got the vaccine because we had Brexited. And that wasn't true. We were still part of the EU, technically, while the vaccine was being developed. In fact, when the first woman who had the vaccine got it shot into her arm, we were not officially, we hadn't left the EU officially. The flag had not been taken down. That was done. The flag had been taken down in 2020, but we hadn't officially left. We were still under EU rules and regulations until the end of January 2021, and the first injection was in December 2020. So yeah, just an absolute shit tip from start to bottom the way the government responded to COVID, and we should never let them forget that. So, yeah, there's going to be tensions in the room, and then there is this problem with people in Labour. How do I put this? Right. There are certain people in the Labour government who, quite frankly, should be in the Tories. And I'm not talking necessarily about the MPs. I'm talking more maybe about the advisors and people like that. The very, very posh boys and girls who feel that they were born to rule, but for whatever reason have a bit of a conscience about, social issues, about people who aren't them and their chums that all went to boarding school together and played Tom Tuggin hat at the break times. I've met some of them. I've met some of them, and they're deliriously posh, and they don't really understand what it's like to be just a normal person, I guess, living in this country right now. Maybe in your 30s, maybe in your 40s, and looking down the barrel of the gun of, oh my God, I don't own a house, don't have a car. Like, what? Why is my life turned out this way? This is not my beautiful wife. This is not my beautiful home. How did I get here? Yeah. Anyway, and I don't think they get it. And a lot of these people, quite posh, always privately educated people, were about in the Corbyn era. They got really, really excited in the Corbyn era. And if you look at Corbyn and all the people who advised Corbyn, every single one of them went to private school. One of them was a lord, for Christ's sake. He was part of the aristocracy. Yeah. And I've always felt they were always slightly detached. You know the way when you get a TV show and set in the olden days or in a fantasy realm, and the king, the commoners go and ask the king for stuff, and the king is like, "Oh, I don't understand what you're talking about, but yes, give this person an extra flock of sheep." Oh, and you can tell there's no connection there. It's a bit like that. And some of those people are still involved at Labour now, and I honestly believe that they're the ones holding it back. I would rather take 100 Angela Rayners over one preppy, privately educated posh boy who thinks they know everything. Anyway, right, I'm going to jump into the chat now. Imagine the abuse she would have got if she bought the suit in Primark. Very true. Mike Higgins talking about the suit bought by Angela Rayner. I mean, that's just the biggest non-story of the year, I think. Actually, no, I think that might be the front cover of the Star today, which we'll get to in a moment. How Labour treat disabled people and people on PIP on a budget will dictate how I vote in the future. I voted Labour to out the Tories, but would have voted Green if it had any sway, says Sarah Davis. Yeah, like I would like to see proportional representation or some form of voting. What do we say? Voting reform. Single transferable votes is a good idea. So you can vote first for the Greens and then vote second for Labour or someone else, I prefer that system because it means that the winning party generally gets over 50% of the votes. You can't argue with that once all the votes are transferred. And also there's ways of doing PR so that we have regional lists, which would be a good idea. So you have the constituency link, you keep that, but then also say you live in a very, very Tory community where you know that your Tory MP is not going to do anything for you ever because they're a Tory. However, you in the metropolitan area or in the county in which you live, you have another MP who represents a larger area who is Labour. And you feel like you can go to them with problems rather than the person who was elected just in your constituency who is never there and doesn't give a toss about you. It's something to think about. But yeah, we're not really talking about voting reform today. But did the trousers come down past his ankles? And did he wear Reeboks like Rishi? Yeah, indeed. Could you imagine, Simon, if she'd gone to Primark and bought him trousers that didn't fit? Time Traveller says, Labour's constant weakness for trans rights makes you walk away. They could have been a firewall against the Tory crap, but decided to move on the Tory anti-trans policy in almost every area. Time Traveller, I agree. Another open goal for Labour. An absolute open goal. Because here's the thing. The only people who should care deeply about who uses what toilets, etc. Are the people who need to use the toilet, not the people who aren't using the toilet 1,000 miles away in a castle who never have to pee next to one of the plebs, going off on one about like using the wrong toilet. I was in the National Express coach station in Manchester the other day, and would you believe it? There was a woman. I assumed she was trans because she looked trans. I mean, that might just be my prejudices because she didn't look traditionally feminine. Who knows? I don't care. I'm rich beyond your wildest dreams. I mean, it is a bit rich. See what I did there? Of these people who don't have to use public toilets because I'm sure they have their own golden toilet carried around on the backs of their servants who work for them. They seem absolutely freaking obsessed. Absolutely obsessed. But here's the thing. The vast majority of voters are not. The vast majority of voters are very much live and let live. They don't really think about trans people all the freaking time. Again, the only people who should think about trans people a lot are possibly trans people, and that's it. Like, I don't understand why people who aren't trans wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because trans people exist. I don't get it. I really... Haven't they got better things to do with their lives? We're only here for a little while. We're here for, we're here for a good time, not a long time. I can't stress that enough. Just chill. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Johan says 14 years out of power, suddenly a lot of MPs that have no experience at all in government and a hostile mainstream media. What could go wrong? Very good point, Johan. Well made. Diz says, I really don't get their stance on trans rights concern. Yeah, it is a bit odd. And then you see people who you respect, like Jess Phillips, who have done a lot of work for women's rights, have fallen down the rabbit hole. And they're going, but, we have to take rights away from trans people, obviously, in order to secure women's rights. In order to protect women and girls from being abused by men, we need to somehow get rid of trans women from society. I don't know how. I don't know why we would want to do that, but it's something we must do. Great. New Zealand also has hobbits. Not a single COVID hobbit death was reported. That's very true because they stayed in the holes. They locked down. My major concern of the government is they're letting both the right and left drive the narrative, says Martin. Yeah, Martin, you've got a good point there. They just seem weak. It just seems like they're being buffeted by the winds and not, setting down their agenda and saying, this is what we're going to do, and bloody well doing it, which they can do because they've got a stonking great majority of like 200 or something daft. Not bloody toilets again, says Billy Kershaw, indeed. BUFU Mike says, have they said their back PR yet? Oh, pardon me, I had to cough. Not heard out since they came to power. Shame, as they are the difficult decisions you're supposed to make it in office, not freezing pensioners. I agree. I mean, I agree. I just don't understand their priorities here. Look, there's over 10 million pensioners, and most of them shouldn't get that 300 quid because they don't need it. A quarter of all pensioners are millionaires. They do not need that money. They don't need that extra money. They can buy a new car every 6 months. They can go on cruises around the world every 4 months. Most of us can never even dream of earning the amount of money that they get for free just by dint of having a final salary pension, something that doesn't exist anymore for our generation. So, okay, I don't agree with giving rich people a couple hundred quid when we're living in when we're living through a cost of living crisis. At the same time, I don't want people falling through the gaps. And one of the problems with means testing is that people fall through the gaps. They do. And I don't want them to. So I want a proactive effort by the government to make sure that everyone who should get that money gets that goddamn money. But something else the government could be doing right now, to address the problems with heating, right, is by bringing down the heating bills by uncoupling the price of energy from gas. Because gas costs an absolute fortune on the international market since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The cost of gas has gone through the roof. So we are paying the cost of gas for our solar and wind generated electricity, which costs a fraction of what gas costs to make electricity. So why are we doing that? That is ridiculous. The government needs to step in and say we need to uncouple the price of renewable energy from fossil fuels. And that will bring everyone's bills down by hundreds of pounds instantly. And the taxpayer wouldn't have to pick up the bill. Do you know who would have to pick up the bill? The big energy companies that are making an absolute killing right now. In fact, the renewable energy companies are making more than the fossil fuel companies because they've got such massive profit margins now because they are making a product, it costs them a penny, and they are selling it for £1. Because they have to. That's the rule. They have to sell it for, they're like, well, we could sell it for like, I don't know, 2 pence. No, you can't do that. You've got to sell it for £1. Okay, all right then. I'll just buy myself another yacht, I guess, if I have to. One for each foot. The first lesson in politics is that voters are easily influenced. This is why the Tories are always friendly with the media barons, says Alan the Inquirer. I agree. 4 bags of coal, £104. Ouch. Bloody hell, mate. Diz says, we need to remember that apathy is the hardest thing to tackle. There was a low turnout at the election. Yeah, there was a low turnout, but I see not voting as a vote. Like, I disagree with people on this. People think that people should be made to vote, or at least encouraged more to vote. And I think, well, if you honestly don't like any of the options that are presented to you, don't order any food. Do you know what I mean? Don't sit there in misery eating something that you don't like. Just don't go to the restaurant. Just stay at home. That's an option. That is an option on the menu, technically. And I think in a free and fair democracy, we shouldn't be compelled to vote if we don't want to vote. I think that the system in Australia, when I was younger, I thought it was better. I thought that, you're made to vote. People died for your right to vote. You should definitely vote. Yeah, but you could have flipped that on its head and say, people died for your right to not vote if you can't be asked. And in Australia, people think in this country that if everyone voted, and you see those pie charts where it's like 1/3 voted Labour, 1/3 voted Conservative, and 1/3 didn't vote. If they got off their asses and vote, they'd all vote for, and it's always the party that you want. Like, obviously they'll all vote Green. They'd all vote for Labour. They'd all vote for the Lib Dems. They would, No, they wouldn't. You look at the successive governments in Australia, they have just as many conservative governments over there as we do over here. They call themselves liberals, which is really weird. But it doesn't make much of a difference to who actually ends up in power and how much power that they have. Johan says, this Sunday we have local elections here in Belgium. First time showing up to vote isn't compulsory. The results should be interesting. Oh. Again, I think it's, I think it's some idiot racing past the window. I think that's fair enough, that people don't vote. Stephanie saying, Graham, spoil your vote to show that you do not like those on offer. Well, why? Why don't you just not turn up? I mean, like, why go through the effort of spoiling your vote? No one's going to see it. If you write all the twats on your paper, no one's going to see that. I mean, it's going to be it's just going to be like the people in the counting the ballots, and they've got thousands to get through. I mean, they don't really care. One of my friends worked at a counting station in the last election, and he was telling me that at the end of the night they have all the ones that are like dubious, like did they put a mark, did they not put a mark, does this count as a vote? And one angry person put a knob instead of an X, they drew a knob. And basically that went through as a vote for that candidate, even though they drew a knob, because it's a mark in the square. And by the rules, that's a vote for that candidate. So whoever turned up to spoil their paper ended up voting possibly for the candidate they didn't want. Let that be a warning to us all, I guess. Savak says a lot of conservatives in Scandinavian countries are called liberals or left. It's from time when their views are it's from the time when the views were actually liberal. Yeah, well, things change. Don't forget, in America, the Democrats were the bad guys in the Civil War. They were the ones who wanted to keep the slaves. Seriously, no, they were. I mean, Southern Democrats in America was a huge thing until the 1970s, 80s, probably, before they all moved to the Republican Party. But yeah, racists who were bothered about the civil rights movement and equality coming in for men and women. All those people, the southern rednecks, they all jump ship from the Democrats to the Republicans. Graham, not showing up can mean you just don't care at all. Not that you'll find no one worth voting for. I want pictures of male genitalia. I'll comment on spoiled votes, says Stephanie. Yeah, I mean, some people don't care about politics. I always talk about this as well. Like, I don't think that's their right to not be asked about it. And I know it blows our minds, us that care about politics deeply, and we understand the effect that it has on our society. But I think we do that at the cost of maybe not quite understanding the impacts that it has on people's mental health when they get too involved in this stuff, and it's kind of depressing every day. I know a few people who have just absolutely disengaged from news, from what's going on. And I get it. I absolutely get it. Today is the anniversary of October the 7th, where this horrific terrorist atrocity was committed in Israel. And since then, we've had just misery, war, torture, just the most grotesque things happening in Gaza, bombings in Lebanon, with just the whole, and Yemen, the whole thing has just been an absolute horror show from start to, and it's not even finished yet, right? So I can't even say from start to finish. And it does upset. I mean, it's like every day it raining. It's like every day being like, in the dark in a hole. And some people just need to disengage from that for the sake of their own mental health more than anything. And I don't have a problem with people not caring about it. In the same way that, when we talk about travel, yeah, I like to travel and I like to enjoy the bit where you travel, where you actually move to get from one place to another. I enjoy that bit, but I know that a lot of people hate it. I know that it's the worst part of the journey for a lot of people. They don't find it exciting or interesting. They don't want to meet new people and have interesting conversations. They just don't. They just don't. And that's fine. That's fine. We're all different. And I don't think that people should be compelled into getting into something that they're not into, because I don't think they're going to make an informed decision at the end of the day when they vote, as we saw in the Brexit vote, when literally millions of people who had never voted before voted in that referendum, and nearly all of them voted to leave because they didn't understand what was really going on, because they hadn't been paying attention. It would be a bit like someone who'd never watched cricket deciding on what the rules of cricket should be. I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even like cricket. Why are you asking me? Well, we need to know what this rule should be about, like before wicket. I don't even know what these words mean. What is a wicket? Anyway, so yeah, I kind of get that. Anyway, Vendetta says they see a sport vote and it gets counted as a sport ballot. Not turning up only gets counted as not being bothered. Well, like I said, I have no problem with that. I know some of you do, but I don't have a problem with that. In the final episode of Devi Girls, a smiley face counted as a vote. That's from Colin Baker. It does indeed. It's a mark in the box. A mark in the box. Ivan says there is no public consultation on the assisted dying bill. That's an absolute disgrace. I don't know if... okay, I didn't know that there wasn't going to be a public consultation. But this is a private member's bill that's coming in. And I think that the rules are different with that. But, I mean... a public consultation, again, it's kind of like we've elected these people to represent us, and them throwing that back to us and saying, no, we can't possibly decide whether we should stay in or out of the EU. You decide for us. You decide what's best for the entire country, even though people who haven't got a particular opinion about this will be forced to shape an opinion on it. Look, I'm all for the assisted dying bill, as long as there are caveats, obviously safeguards in place to make sure that people don't feel obliged to take their own lives when they don't need to. It's got to be when people are terminally ill, they have X many months left, they will not get better, and it's got to be signed off by medical professionals. It can't just be, pressure from the family saying, could do with you out of here because that's a nice house you're not using, being in this hospice or whatever. So yeah, you have to make sure that people don't abuse the system, but that's the same with anything. I just feel like if I only had a few months left of my life and I was going to spend all those days in absolute misery, shitting myself in a hospital bed, in a hospice or whatever, no, I don't want that. You know, if it's my choice, if I want to eke out every last moment of life, then I can do that. That's fine. There's no obligation to go down the assisted dying route. But if I want to do that, I don't understand why it is, again, like so many things in life, a privilege that is afforded the rich who can afford to go to Dignitas in Switzerland, but not afforded the rest of us plebs, us little plebby people. Peter says, Peter Paints says, I don't forget how awful the Tories were in government just because Starmer lacks spin. Yeah, I don't, mate. You're absolutely right. It's just the fact that, I know we've gone off on a few tangents here, but it's just the fact that Labour have really dropped the ball in the last couple of months. And this is the time when they should be hitting the ground running, not hitting the ground nose first. Graham, I'm not talking about the EU, I'm talking about assisted dying. Yeah, I'm talking about that. Public consultation includes public opinion, but doesn't force the government to do anything. Yeah, says Alan the Inquirer. The worst thing to do is to give up, says number 3. I'm interested in quality of life, not length of life, says Stephanie Wilson. Well, I'm just thinking about myself. Like, I'm just thinking selfishly, somewhat, about myself. Like, if I knew that, for instance, I was going to be tortured every day for a year, at the end of which I will be shot in the head, right? And every day I will be in agonizing pain for a year. And then at the end of it, I'm not getting out, I'm getting shot in the head. Or I can be shot in the head today. I'll take the former, thank you very much. The latter. I'll take the latter, thank you very much. Because why would I want a year of pain? Why would I want that? I don't want it. I don't deserve it, I don't think. Well, some people might think I do, but I don't think I do. That's the way I look at it. So yeah, as a personal thing, and this goes back to something that I often talk about, I don't think that the government should be allowed to tell me what I do with my own body as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. And that goes with tattoos, piercings, abortions, Brazilian butt lifts. I mean, make them safe, for Christ's sake. Have regulations in there so people don't die of blood poisoning after having a tattoo, or don't die from the Botox they've had injected into their bum. You know, yeah, fine, put regulation in place. I'm all for that. But to stop people doing it entirely, and that goes for drugs as well. If people want to take drugs in the comfort of their own home, it's no skin off my nose, you know? But if people want to take drugs and then drive a car, that's a problem. We need to do something about it. Anyway, Michael says, I voted for a Labour government. I also voted to get rid of the worst Tory government in recent history. I have enough faith in Labour to allow them to get on with the job of turning the ship around. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Okay, we're going to very, very quickly go to the newspapers for a moment because we're running out of time. It's past 10 o'clock already. We've got I was talking about ridiculous headlines. The Daily Star here. Did you see that massive beaver? The crazy boffins want to bring back to life extinct 5-foot rodents with 9-inch teeth. Okay. And then we've got the Mail here with Meghan looking gorgeous. And yeah, she goes solo. Ooh, we got a super chat. Woohoo. Thank you very much, Ivan. Like a little super chat animation. Try being autistic when COVID. They wanted to give us DNRs because they say autistic people are less worthy. It's a horrible feeling. Ivan, mate, thank you for the super chat, and I absolutely agree that the way that, didn't they say that autistic people were more likely to get COVID and stuff? Like, it was abhorrent. And again, like, I don't think that this should be a blanket thing where it's like anyone who feels pressured into taking their own lives should be assisted in doing so. No, absolutely not. And being autistic isn't a terminal disease. It's not cancer that's slowly eating you from the inside. It's not like life growing inside. It's not like being pregnant, but it's death. It's literally your own body turning against you. And I've had enough people in my life who have died of cancer and been with them in those final few months to know that, like, given the choice, they would rather just keep taking the keep taking the morphine until the pain goes away. And I get that. I absolutely get that. And I completely understand that there will be some bad actors out there who will try and manipulate the situation to their benefit. And what we need to do is make sure, A, that if they want to do that, they're going to find it very, very difficult to do so. And B, if they do that, they go to jail for a very, very long time for murder, for literally driving someone to murder. Like, at the moment, there's no law against driving someone to suicide. Did you know that? There's no law against it. If you harass someone night and day, knocking on their door, giving them phone calls, bombarding them with messages, and they can't take it anymore and they take their own lives, there's no law against that. Unbelievably, there is no specific law against that because it's so hard to prove in a court of law. Because how do you gauge what is in someone's mind before they choose to do that act? And that, I think, needs changing. That definitely needs changing. I mean, there's other laws that, on the periphery, but you ain't going down for murder, which I think you should go down for in those situations. Stephanie says, I enjoyed the shutdown because I didn't have to mix with people, says Stephanie. I didn't like it for the opposite reason. Anyway, Sue Gray farce shows PM's lack of judgment. Blast Kemi. Cares about Kemi. Kemi talking about other people's lack of judgment. The woman who said that we should get rid of maternity leave. All right, love. Daily Tory graph here. Sue Gray ousted as PM wields the knife. I thought she resigned. Gray ousted in Labour coup. Is the front cover of the of there, and also there's a picture of on Telegraph. There's a picture of the British hostage who's still being held from October the 7th last year. Has been held for over a year now. No one knows what's happened to her. And then we've got a picture of a woman grieving. From the October the 7th anniversary. It's been a year of hell, time to find peace. Calls to end killing as Brit mum pleads for her hostage daughter. I couldn't agree more. Time to find peace. I mean, the best time to find peace was a year ago. The second best time is today. Guardian says 1 year on, Israel remembers its victims and intensifies airstrikes. Not the way to stop this happening again. Families fear for hostages in Gaza as mood shifts. And then we've got Starmer's election guru steps in after Gray quits. Talking about Sue Gray. Gray forced out as Starmer moves to get grip on number 10. Chief of Staff quits in power struggle. Overhaul seen by critics as overdue. Well, there you go. And Starmer Chief Sue Gray exits his sinking ship. It's a bit rich from the Daily Express, talking about a sinking ship. This is a newspaper that has supported the Tories through thick and thin. And they're saying there that... and weird a bit like the Express and the Mail have both got really stunning pictures of Meghan. But it's like, Meghan sparkles, but where was Harry, eh? Where was Harry? Who cares? I really don't care. Gray ousted in Downing Street power struggle. Maybe he was looking after the kids. Men can be primary caregivers as well. And then this horrific cover of the Independent, which lays bare all the stats over the last year. So let's read through this. 365 days of horror. We've got 41,870 Palestinians killed. We've had over 10,000 200-pound bombs the US have sent to Israel since October the 7th, alongside thousands of Hellfire missiles. 100 million is the amount of aid committed by the UK to both Gaza and the occupied West Bank. We've got 66% the number of buildings damaged or destroyed across the Gaza Strip. That amounts to 164,000 structures, including 70,000 homes. I mean, just wow. It is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And yeah, like I say, I can see why people just turn off from politics. They don't want to read the news because it's not great for their mental health. I completely get that, and I don't have a problem with it. Credit where credit's due, Graham. I asked for Labour voters to be more critical and less partisan, and you're doing exactly that, says Clue Bloroscope. Bloropope. Yes, I but I discussed this with Owen Jones. I mean, like, I don't know how much of the interview, I haven't actually watched it, that he actually put on his channel. But my point was, it's fine now. Labour in power. Labour in power. Criticise them as much as you like. You know, go with God. Like, this is now when you should be criticising the government. My problem in the lead up to the last election was people who said they were on the left, who seemed to be quite happy for another 5 years of Tory government because they seem to be more pissed off with Labour for not being the party quite what they wanted and only giving them 50% of the things they wanted rather than 100% of absolutely everything. They seem more pissed off at Labour for not being exactly what they wanted than they were against the Tories for 14 years of cruel and sadistic misrule and carnage. Like, I just didn't get it. I was like, get rid of the Tories and then we can, you know, put Labour right every day if we want to. That's fine. And that's, I mean, I don't know, like I say, I don't know how much of the interview with Owen Jones he put on his website, but I just think, like, as I said to him, it's fine. You know, it's okay. But he came, he bounded up to me and he was like, oh, you must be happy that Starmer, your shiny golden god, is leader now. And I'm like, he's just some guy. You know, if he left tomorrow and someone else took over, I wouldn't be that arsed. If there's going to be a decision by referendum, every decision should be by referendum and should be governed by well-established rules, including supermajority. Says Operation Goldfish. Yeah, I agree. When Norway wanted independence from Denmark back in the 1910s, whenever it was like 99%. 99% of the people said they wanted to become an independent country. I mean, that's bloody overwhelming. Like, I can't argue with that. 50%? No. Just no. And that goes for Brexit, that goes for getting back into the EU, that goes for Scotland independence. It should be a supermajority on a question like that. And then you got the debate on whether a question like that should be asked of the people when, like I say, most people don't care. They're not engaged. You're making them choose the rules of a sport they don't watch and they're not interested in and they don't know. Anyway, crazy idea, not worshipping politicians, says Lucas. I know. My day. Anyway, so I'll be back tonight at 8 o'clock for Stateside. We'll be talking about, oh my God, the shit that's going on across the pond. Only a few more episodes of that left until the American election in a month's time. Oh my God, it's only a month away. I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know if anyone saw the pictures yesterday of Elon Musk jumping up and down behind Donald Trump. It was just cringe. Like, I think in the future, when you look up online, because obviously we don't use books anymore, you look up the word cringe, that picture is going to come up of Elon Musk jumping and showing his flabby, white, middle-aged belly. And Trump standing there, and oh God, it's just, goes through me. It goes through me. As someone with a quite a, middle-aged, super white belly, I keep mine away. I don't get it out in public for a very good reason, Elon. Weirdo. Anyway, Elonius, I heard him being called Emperor Palpatine, which I thought was quite funny. Anyway, moving on. Catch you lovely badgers later. Where is Tom Cruise and Elon jumping? That would be good, actually. Elon jumping on the couch. Okay, so I've gone 13 minutes over time. So bumper show today. But like I said, I'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight for Stateside. So please join us for that. We'll have a tamed American talking to us about what's happening over the other side of the pond. And, I'd rather stick on British politics, but I mean, we've got to mention this because it will affect us. It will affect us. So hopefully we'll see you then. And until then, I'll say thanks so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks. Give us a like on the way out. That'd be really kind of you. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.